so what we'll do now is we'll do a explanation of the LHiNC, who we are, what we do, and some activities just for orientation for those of you that are here. And who are we? You know, we're a nonprofit and we're formed to represent the neighborhood of Linden Hills, the residents and the business owners. We're fortunate, and I've lived in different places around the country and around the world before I got here. But Minneapolis, because we have neighborhood associations that are funded and endorsed by the city, it does give this place a special vibe to it. So we are the Linden Hills neighborhood organization. You know, what are we here to do? We're here to serve as a voice in the community. We're here to be a voice for you. And we're also here to represent you, but also to try to help build esprit de corps, camaraderie, and then good feeling within the neighborhood. Next slide. So let's talk about some of the community events. So the main community events that we work to support during the year, and they help us are, the Linden Hills Spring Festival, which usually takes place in the third weekend in May. We didn't have it this year thanks to COVID, but the Festival of May is it's a good event for the neighborhood, and it's our primary fundraising event for the organization. And we'll get to what we do with the money a little bit later. But there's the festival, and then the other one is the Taste of Linden Hills, which we've only been doing, I think we've done now for the past 4 or 5 years. We do that in the fall, and that's a good opportunity. We're well represented from our neighborhood restaurants, but it's a chance for people to get together. We have entertainment, food and drink, but it's a fundraising opportunity for us in the neighborhood. And we take all of the money from the Taste of Linden Hills and we try to roll it back into the grants program that I'll get to later. So that's the Taste of Linden Hills. We are one of the main supporters of the Art Shanty project that's gone on Lake Harriet for a couple of years now, as that organization has dealt with some funding issues in its sustainability themselves. It's been up and down, but when it has occurred, we've been a primary sponsor of the event, and we have a Linden Hills shanty, if that's what you want to call it, a little history shanty that's pictured in the lower center of the screen. But the Art Shanty is a great event. We're happy to be part of it. And then we're also a sponsor of the Kite Festival that Erica, who will introduce herself later, has always been our park board contact for. But the Kite Festival, great opportunity to celebrate living in Minnesota and to get outside in the middle of the winter. So we are a sponsor for those two activities. And then we try to be good partners. We try to partner within the neighborhood to the extent possible, and then outside of the neighborhood is an effort where we work at. So our partnerships include, the Lake Harriet Lower Campus. We partner extensively with the high school. So when they come to us and ask for things, we are more than happy to support them either through our grants or through other things. For example, you can see up in the upper left-hand corner, that's the Three Strings, a group of kids out of Southwest High School with special learning situations that they took a trip down to Orlando to compete in a contest. So that on the upper right-hand corner, you can see the robotics team. This was all the Rubies, an all-girls robotics team based out of Linden Hills. That they just do wonderful things with robotics, so we were a sponsor of them. We've worked on playground equipment for the lower campus of the school. This was to replace some equipment that was damaged in the fire. And then we also work on a food activity with the schools to teach about general nutrition, organic food, local food for them. So we've been happy to work with the schools. I think when the schools ask, we always try to deliver if it's at all possible. In terms of the library and parks, we worked this year. What you see pictured this is an area that the park, that the library has set up, and it's focused on teens. So it's focused on providing a place for teens to gather and to study with computers and tables and chairs. So we worked to sponsor that. We've been a sponsor of the bocce ball courts down at Linden Hills Park, as those were built, and for that activity. And then we also had the bike racks installed, and then the bike fix-it station. So we've installed those at a few different areas around the neighborhood over the past few years. But Linden Hills Park, we did them down at by the band shell as well, and then at a couple other places inside the Linden Hills Business District, and then down on 44th in the business node there. So we've tried to partner with organizations to make this a better place to live for everyone. So in terms of partnership with local businesses, we were happy to partner with at the intersection of Upton and 43rd, where the Pocket Park was built. So we sponsored the Pocket Park and the equipping of the Pocket Park that's located there. And then we work with other groups like the Business Association in terms of helping with Woofstock Reindeer Days of Wine and Cheese stroll down there. And we've also, with the farmers market, we have a booth and we try to support them. And as you know, over the past couple of years, we did partner with the farmers market so that the initial farmers market of the year is also done over at the Linden Hills Park, so that it's a combined activity. Try to be successful for all. And then citywide partnership. So in response to the events after George Floyd's death, we have made a decision as a group to try to listen to the needs of the community, to try to be more focused outside of Linden Hills and focus on the needs of the rest of the city. And in response to that, we've given $12,000 to the Lake Street Council to help with the rebuilding efforts on Lake Street. And at the same time, we also gave $12,000 to the North Side businesses to try to help both of those communities in need with valid needs, to try to kickstart the efforts there to keep those communities, get them rebuilt. And then the next two items have to do with NRP program, Neighborhood Revitalization Program. The program's been around the city for a long time. We have had a challenge with how do we use our housing money inside the program. And it has, it has to do with a bunch of other stuff. Nonetheless, it's been difficult to execute housing. But we were able this year to take a look at two different programs that we've been able to provide funding for. One is a homeowners navigation program where we've given $25,000 of grant money to help people there. And then the other one is Propel, which is an organization that works to find affordable housing for people and to get them into affordable housing. And then in that case, we've allocated $130,000 for their efforts. We've been hosting an immigration speaker series. We've had 2 sessions with that, working with the city's immigration office, just to make people more aware of the issues facing immigrants inside our city, and then what we can do in response to their needs and situation. We try to connect people to access with the city. So we're beneficial, or we benefit from Lene. Lene takes the time during our monthly meetings to come talk to us herself and to keep us informed. We have the school board in quite often, where Ira Jourdain will come in and talk to us about what's going on within the schools, just so that there's a level of awareness and the connection between neighborhood and the city, or neighborhood and the school board. Same thing takes place with the park. So we try to connect the neighborhood to city representatives when at all possible. We have worked to try to host events of items that are fairly critical. For example, the Minneapolis 2040 plan. So we held an event to connect people to that. So if something's big, we do try to bring an event in where we have speakers and allow people an opportunity to have voice for those. And then over the past year, we've been working to try to put polls out to the neighborhood. An example of that would be, we did a poll as the park board was looking about what to do with traffic flow around the lakes when COVID first started. We did a poll, and then we gave the input to the park board, and we felt like that was helpful in representing what the needs of the community were, right from you to the park board, not with any filter in between. And then finally, I think we have an outstanding community engagement committee that publishes the electronic news or the e-news and the use of social media just to keep people informed of what's going on around. So let's talk this for a second. I'll talk about finances. How are we financed? Where does our money come from? And then where does our money go to? So the neighborhood council, we have, three primary income streams in order for the council to execute. Now, we receive money through the city's community participation program. So that is, and that's used primarily to supplement the operating costs of the LHiNC. So we receive money from there. We receive the ability to use money through the neighborhood revitalization program, which has been in place for a long time, but there is the ability of neighborhood councils to make changes to how you spend that money as long as you have an approved plan. So an example of what we use NRP money for was we used it when we were publishing the hard copy line. We use that to fund that. And we also use it for the housing programs. We use it for some park maintenance and things like that. And then finally, there's our own fundraising efforts. The two primary ones are what I spoke about before, the Linden Hills Festival and the Taste of Linden Hills. In a good year, between those two events, we can bring in about $25,000 of income to be used. What do we spend our money on? We have general operating expenses, just like any organization. So we have staff pay, we have pay for the bookkeeping services, we pay for insurance. So there's a general operating funds. We spend our money on NRP program expenses, for example, the housing ones that I spoke about earlier, and then the grants and public support. And our goal in any given year is to give out $10,000 in grants. The reason we give $10,000 is we believe that's a sustainable amount of money to give. It could be higher, it could be lower, but 10,000 makes it sustainable. Next slide. And then, so how are we doing as a group? So right now we've worked really hard over the past few years to manage our money so that it's managed sustainably for the long term. And so right now we maintain a bank balance of $99,000. I think our goal, our target as a group is to try to keep it around $100,000 and then to watch our outflow of cash as an organization. It's all done, we vote on it as a group. It's not, no single person, is in charge of it, how we do that. Okay, so lots of opportunities to get involved. So our committees, we have the Community Engagement Committee, which does a great job. They have been the biggest drumbeat that we've had since COVID started, between the newsletter, the e-news, and what we do on social media. So we have our Community Engagement Committee. Environment Sustainability Committee does a wonderful job with a multitude of different efforts, either along the trolley path. They spend a lot of time down there, pill invasive species over by the lakes, but they've always got something going on to make this a better and more beautiful place to live. And if Leah had it her way, no one would be using chemicals on their lawn in the neighborhood. We have an events committee that's responsible for putting on the Taste and for putting on the Linden Hills Festival. And then finally, zoning and housing, which is a good committee because when people want a variance inside the neighborhood, they will come to zoning and housing. And then they work really to kind of make sure that the neighborhood's informed, to work to resolve issues if there are issues, and just to be a place where people can come together to talk about these issues and to come up with a position or a path forward recommendation for activities that have to do with zoning and housing. Zoning and housing will be hosting an event in the next week or so that will talk about explaining the zoning code changes that have taken place due to Minneapolis 2040. So those are that's one upcoming event on October 12th. And then on October 17th, we have a Young Environmentalist Workshop that is being hosted to build the future of young environmentalists. So, and then immigration series, we have part 3 that'll be coming up in November, December. And then we'll be hosting a future of policing panel. We decided we would do this after the election, but that'll be taking place in December and January. It may be multiple nights of activity, but it's to allow people to explore the issues around the future of policing and be able to ask questions this is going to be a lot of it focused on the why is it the way it is? What are the constraints upon trying to make changes to the system? So that's what we want to focus on with the future policing. And then finally get connected. So we have a website, the description or our candidates' bios are posted, why they want to be here, and then subscribe to the e-news. We have a good newsletter that's read by a decent number of people every time it's sent out. So the open rate is over 40%, and I think it goes to over 4,000 different addressees.